Welcome, all who come to hear my tales. Tonight I might sound a little messed up. I'm fighting a cold. But have no worry. I'm here to deliver stories from New Hampshire. The first one is fiction, and the second one's a true story that happened in my home, near my home in Georgia. For those of you who enjoy my videos and have not done it yet, please subscribe and don't forget to click the bell overhead. Now for our story to begin. Wood Devils of Coos County and Bigfoot. Me, my mother and father lived near the border of Canada in Coos County when I was a child. It has miles of woodland and its own tales of a ape-like creature, although not to be confused with its larger, heavier cousin, Bigfoot. This is home to the wood devil, or devils, as the case may be. They are tall and lean, with a pointed and deformed head, and a loud cry they make when surprised. I grew up in those woods. My father was a ranger. Me, him, and my mother would enjoy hiking, being outside, part of nature. We used to travel the trails through the woodlands for miles until we got tired and turned around to come back home. I remember one particular day. It was an ordinary day like any other. And it was a beautiful sky overhead. The trees quietly blew as wind rushed through their leaves. We could hear the sound of crickets, birds in the top of trees, and occasionally a chipmunk running across the leaves on the ground floor. My parents would be ahead of me talking, as I prefer to stay back, listening to all the sounds I could hear without the noise of their voices. I was always very aware of my surroundings as a kid, very alert to where I am and what was near me. It would help me later when I became a police officer. But as of right now, I was just a kid with his parents on a hiking trail. We were walking and I noticed how things had gotten quiet. Very quiet. In fact, the only noise I could hear was our feet on the dirt trail and the voices of my parents talking about something in a hushed tone ahead. That's when I heard the twig snapping. I pause and look around, wanting to see just where the noise came from. But I saw nothing. So I started walking again when I heard heavy limbs breaking. Now I knew something else was in the woods besides us. While stopping and listening, my parents kept talking and walking further down the trail. I looked around on all sides when I saw a movement to my right. It was big, it was fast, and it scared me half to death. I tried to see what it was, but all it was a flash of darkness. I started walking backwards down the trail, keeping an eye behind me, when I saw the same movement on my left side this time. I stopped and I scanned the trees, and that's when I saw it, and it saw me. Now my family are not quite tall. My dad is just below 6 foot, maybe 5'10". My mother is only 5'3" or 5'4", and I was still growing, so I wasn't much taller than 5'5". This thing easily towered over me. It was tall and thinly made, with long, thin arms and thin legs. A body covered in dark gray fur. It wasn't the fur that surprised me or that caught my attention. Instead, it was the face and the head. You see, the face looked very much human, but was not human. The head had an unusual, slightly tall point on the top. It started looking left and right. And that's when it made a very high-pitched scream. It wasn't so much a howl as a canine or dog might make. And it wasn't a howl a human would make, but something in between, and very, very loud. So loud that my parents ran back to where I was and saw the creature for themselves. It towered over them as well. It stood there watching us with a very human look on his face. Not like a wild, caged animal. It wasn't afraid. But it wasn't moving either. That's when we made that high pitch howl again. Up close. It was too much for my mother to bear. She started backing up slowly. And when she did, she lost her balance and fell. My dad and me both trying to catch her. And as we helped her back up, we heard something move. And it moved fast. We looked across from us. And the creature that stood there seconds ago was gone. All you saw in the trees were a dark gray object dashing between tree to tree to tree, faster than any human can move, almost like a spirit or maybe a ghost if you believe in such things. I'm not sure if I do. I'm not sure if I ever believed the story of the wood devil before. But I promise you, after that night, me and my parents had no doubts that at least one of the creatures was real. It never did try to harm us. But I'm sure those long, lanky arms could have done so quite easily. I was lucky to have never seen it again. Neither did they. Or if they did, they never bothered to tell me. Bigfoot in Georgia. I used to live near Jackson, Georgia. And the Highway 16 will take you into Monticello, Georgia. And that is where there's a patch of woods that is deceptively easy to get lost in. You see the wooded area and you drive down the road. But those woods, that whole area is a lot larger than it seems. And it's a maze in there. One path or road leads into a intersection, so to speak, of joining roads. And the more you try to get out of that place, the deeper you end up going into it instead. So unless you've been there quite a few times like I had, you will be lost easily, and with only a few turns here and there, you'll be trying to find your way back to the main road. But good luck, because there's one place the phone service does not really work at. I was on my way to Monticello when I drove by that one spot we used to play in as kids. I noticed a strange man at the tree line. I slowed down and stopped, turned the truck around. I came back and saw him walking into the woods. He was a big guy and had an unusual fur coat on, so I thought. Well, it looked strange to me. So I slowly turned down and drove into the area. I didn't see him for a few minutes. But that's not a big problem because, like I said, it's a large area to go to. I rolled down my window and turned the AC off, and the smell hit me. Ooh, it hit me hard. For any of you that love dogs like I do, and you ever had your dog come in inside the house from it raining outside all day, or you gave your dog a bath and that fur is wet, you know the wet fur smell I'm talking about. Multiply that by 10 or 20, and that was what I smelled when I rolled down my windows. The stench was awful. It made me gag. I actually had to pull the truck over to the side, jump out of the truck, drop to my hands and knees, getting ready to be sick. Luckily, that didn't happen, because while I was down there praying to an invisible porcelain god, if you will, I got the feeling I was being watched. And the smell became so much worse. I looked up, and not 10 feet from me, still in the tree line, was what I thought was a man. Needless to say, that's not a fur coat he was wearing. This creature stood easily over 7 feet tall, because I'm at 6'6". It was hairy, very muscular. Not in a bodybuilder way, but more just big and bulky, with massive arms, massive legs, and broad shoulders that would make you not want to get in a fight with it. It had dark brown fur, hair covering his entire body from head to toe. As I stood up, slowly, it eyed me and looked right at my face. If you ever saw the Planet of the Apes, you'd realize what I'm talking about. The face was a mix between ape and man, with very human-looking eyes, with even fur like a beard going on his face. The hands were human. The feet were human. but the size was something entirely different. I slowly stepped backward, knowing I'm not about to try to take this thing down alone. I slid back into my truck, wishing I had brought my gun, because there was a few times that I actually left the house without one. And as I sat down in my seat, it simply turned and disappeared into the forest. Of course, I told my friends and neighbors, even my cousins. No one believed me. Their first question was how much had I drank that day. For the record, not a drop. No one believed me. But I know what I smelled. I know what I saw. And I will not go down in that part of the woods ever again. Am I afraid? I'm 6'6". This thing made me look like a little teenager. I don't want to push my luck. And let's leave it at that. But I know what I saw. I hope you enjoyed these two stories. The first one was entirely fiction. The creature is a cryptid, but the story is made up. However, the second one about Bigfoot is real. And it comes from a source that I'm not going to argue with. I believe her when she told me this. And I'm not going to mention her name on here to protect her identity, but to this day, 20 years later, she still believes she saw a Bigfoot near Jackson, Georgia. So come back next week as we continue our quest finding cryptids, monsters, spirits, or legends across America as we travel from state to state. Next week, we head to the shore of New Jersey. And one of the most famous cryptids, and one of the first cryptids I have ever heard of, and what really got me interested in the unknown. As always, beware of those that hide in the Shadowland.